Hello, today I would like to talk to you about ketamine. You can look it up online, more information about it. I'm going to tell you my experience with it. All that I have to tell you to start with is that I'm alive because of Jesus and ketamine. I would have been dead 100% if it wasn't for that. Um, I used to be depressed since childhood. Um, I know because we lived short time in a certain house, and I remember being sad in that house, and I remember the house clearly. And my mom tells me that I was between 2 and 3 years old, and I remember deeply crying, feeling very depressed. I was never a child like other children are. When I lived in this house that I told you, I was sexually abused by a brother of my father, and my life was a series of bad events. I went to doctors pretty often throughout childhood and my teen years. I was a very depressed child and teenager. So I wasn't able to keep a calendar. I would write things. I would make an attempt to keep a calendar. I would write things on it, but I couldn't go back to it. And my mind could not function that I could go back to the calendar and look my appointments. So sometimes I wrote on it, but I wouldn't go back to it. Same thing with the paper. I bought the paper calendar. I wrote it and I put it in my bag, the little agenda, and put it in my bag, and I wouldn't look to it. So I made appointments and I kept them in my mind. If I was too depressed the day I woke up, I would forget, because depression would take like all my energy, and I wouldn't make for the appointments. I couldn't. It was hard for me to keep up with the stuff from school for my children. Forget about looking at what my children did and look into it, and I will just spend time with them or anything like that. I wasn't able to give my children what other parents do because I didn't have the energy. So depressed I was. One more thing I couldn't do was to wake up early. I had no strength to leave bed. Doesn't matter how long I slept, it was hard for me to get up. I was always tired, had no motivation to get up from bed. And sometimes I would sleep very little. And by the way, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with as a bipolar, but I was according to them, bipolar 2, which is the highs weren't very high. They were low highs, but when I was low, I would go very low, and the highs were very short, very short. I had highs that lasted one day. So one day I felt like I was conquered the world, and then the other day I was down again. And usually when I was on the high, I would do things like impulsively. Regarding medication, I took actually no medication that doesn't make you gain weight worked for me. Like Wellbutrin, it's a medication that helps you, it's for depression. It doesn't make you gain weight, but it wouldn't work for me. It would make me worse, more anxious, more agitated, because now I understand exactly what they mean by bipolar. It's like I did have the lows, but I had the agitation too. So it was like, I could be agitated and depressed at the same time. So it was really bad. The medications that worked for me worked. I mean, I don't know if they worked. They just helped me not to get in despair. Were Lexapro first, which I got off from. I got too much weight with it, and then Effexor. they and I gained weight, a lot of weight, because that's what depression medication do to you. I don't know if it's just because you eat a lot more, or if it is because it stops your metabolism. Because once now that I'm stopping to take it, that I'm well now, I'm losing weight, and I didn't change how much I eat. So I don't know. I was extremely influenced by anything that everybody said. So I never had my own opinion. I was so depressed that I was taken by everybody's opinion. So their opinion about me, their opinion about the things I would do, everything would have a lot of weight on me. And I was always confused. I couldn't make a simple decision. It took a lot for me to make a decision. Except, like I said, when I was on the high, that I would do impulsively. So even though I was depressed my whole life, the depression increased with time. And in 2020, I had a very bad crisis. And when I thought that things couldn't get any worse, in 2022, I had a crisis 5 times worse than 2020. And all the medication that I was taking would do nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. I was in total despair. I had several panic attacks throughout the day, throughout the night. When I was home by myself, my kids were in school, I would sit at the couch and do absolutely nothing. I didn't have the strength. I couldn't take a shower. I couldn't brush my teeth. And when I was well, that I wasn't in this crisis of 2020 and 2022, even being well, I couldn't take care of myself the way I wanted. So I was depressed, but I had a lot of energy to do things at first. So I would work everything of mine was perfect. My house was absolutely perfect. I would cook everything from scratch. Like I was like a robot. I think I had no feelings. I just worked. And as I got older, that changed, and I started getting depressed that I wasn't able to perform those activities anymore. Like the mask was falling, you know what I mean? So I couldn't hold anymore the pain that I had inside. For many, many days in a row, I couldn't do anything. I was just home on my pajamas and couldn't accomplish anything. When I realized it was time for my kids to be back from school, and I had not even planned dinner. That's how depressed I was. From the past that I was able to cook anything and it was pretty good, I got to a point where I was afraid of the kitchen. I couldn't do anything. Absolutely anything. A little more of my background. I grew up in Brazil and I came to the United States in 1999. I actually arrived here the day of the Columbine massacre, and I never forget. And like I said before, the depression increased. In March of 2022, I started having the crisis of my life. I had fear of driving, fear of going to bed because I knew the crisis that I was going to have a night. I didn't sleep well, and I woke up between 1 and 3 a.m. No matter what time I went to bed, I woke up at that time with crisis, very bad crisis. No one to go to, nobody to talk to, nobody was able to help me, nobody was able to understand me. I know that I bothered a lot my psychiatrist, but nobody could help me. It was the battle for my life. At night, when I woke up, the fight was me, God, and the enemy of my soul. And you have an enemy of your soul too. The problem is when you are in the conditions that I was, the abuse that I had, and everything that happened to me, doors in your emotions open up spiritual doors that the enemy of your soul it's able to pressure you to do things you don't want against your life, and only God can break that. When I was desperate at night and I wanted to kill myself many times, I feared God enough not to do it on my own wish, but I was afraid that at a moment of despair I would do it. So I was afraid of killing myself because of despair. I did not eat from March, and just so you have an idea, I'm not talking about science because I'm not a scientist, but people say that medication, the pressure medication makes you eat more. I'm not sure about that, because since March to August, I wasn't eating at all. I never felt that way towards food. Food was always an escape from me, but not at this time. And from March to August, without eating, I'm telling you, I didn't eat. I lost 20 pounds. That's nothing for the amount of months that I didn't eat. I was afraid of driving. I was afraid of watching a movie with my kids. I cannot even describe you the despair that I was in. Torment, pure torment, day and night, not 1 minute of peace. I was afraid that I would go to a building and I would throw myself. I was planning to throw myself from the second floor of my house. That's how despair I was. No, let me correct that. It's not that I planned to do that. I was afraid that I would do that at a moment that I couldn't handle the despair anymore. The only thing I had, which you may not understand this, but I'm telling you is real. It was to whisper the name of Jesus. There's a song that says, call on the name of Jesus, cry the name of Jesus, whisper the name of Jesus. The whisper of his name was the thing that kept me from killing myself, because his name has the power for that. His name is the only one who can stop the enemy of your soul from doing things to you. Now, what amazes me, and I don't say this with anger, okay? I say this, I love the people that help me. I love my psychiatrist. I appreciate him. He put up with me a lot because I would call him. I want him to fix the problem. He wasn't able. Nobody can do anything for you when you are at this point. The battle is between you, God, and the enemy of your soul. And you have to learn to put your eyes on him. You know why? Because I went to so many doctors. At the point that I was, nobody ever told me about ketamine. But I am not mad at anybody. I'm just telling you that when you keep your eyes on God, God is able. He doesn't let you down. He provided me with the information I needed so that I wouldn't kill myself. So a friend of mine from Brazil, the only person that knew that I was depressed, understood a little bit. I don't think she understood the depth of it, but she understood, and she would check on me, very often. And she found somebody in Brazil, very rich, that came to America to do ketamine. And she was on Instagram talking about it. And my friend told me about that. When I first read it, I didn't accept, because it said that it was used as a street drug, and I did not accept, getting addicted to a drug to be healed. I even looked into an oil. I know that is the oil from a CBD, I believe, but it's another form of CBD, is the strongest one. It does not sell in New York. I had to buy from Las Vegas, because the concentration, I don't think it was allowed here at the time in New York. Oh, now it's allowed anywhere now, marijuana. But anyway, I didn't want to take it because I was afraid of the addiction. And after I read everything that was available on the internet about ketamine, and watching every video on YouTube. I had time for that because I did nothing else. That's how depressed I was. I still wasn't convinced. I was afraid, and I have a friend who's also a believer in Jesus like me, and she was praying for me and with me throughout this. And she, one day I went to see her in the moment of despair, and she prayed with me, and I really felt that day like God gave me the peace. And she would tell me, God is telling you, go. And, you know, believers, people that believe in God as the Bible tells you to believe, you hear from God. He tells you things you can do and you can do. Sometimes things are not going to be good for you, and you don't know that, but God does. God sees the future. He knows everything. So I finally got peace to do it. I didn't have a lot of choice either, because I was at the point of like really killing myself, but I did get the peace to go, and I went for the treatment. The treatment is 2 weeks with 6 infusions. I had to take 8. That's how resistant the depression I had was. And then did not take me from the pit. I say I got off from the pit like maybe 30%. And then I took that once a month after the 8 infusions. For 6 months, I got up from the pit. Then 6 more months was for me to be stabilized, like normal. And 3 months now that I am living for the first time. I never lived like this. I was never alive. I was never present in anything. I never enjoyed things like I do now. I have a calendar. I keep calendars. I know the time that I have to be places. It's amazing. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to give you any medicine advice, but I recommend ketamine if you're going through this. And most of all, I recommend you Jesus, because he is faithful.